Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. It's good to have you here on a Thursday. It's the last day of November. The last day, tomorrow, when we gather, God willing, for the 7 o'clock Friday night show with Matt, God willing. It'll be December 1st. December 1st. And if it goes by as quickly as November did, and October, and September, and August, and July, if it goes by as quickly as those, then we're going to be sitting here next November 30th in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. So I just wanted to welcome you all here tonight, and I think it's going to be a really great one. I've been waiting since September. Speaking of September, I've been waiting since September to talk with our guest tonight again on the show, and that guest's name is Barbara Yates. Barbara, I had the pleasure of meeting her in Vermont in September at Jay Gulanello's his health retreat, and we became fast friends. I became fast friends with a lot of people up there, but I knew that just from spending a couple of minutes with her, I had to. You know what it was? Barbara forgot her phone back at one of the houses that everybody was staying. There was couple locations that everybody was staying in, and then there was the main farm where the retreat was on. And we just we realized as we got back to the farm, it was after our cold plunges and all that stuff, that Barbara had left her phone. I said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll take you back." And in that time, driving back to the house and then back, we had a wonderful conversation. I said, "I can't wait to have you on the show." And here we are. We're here tonight. Now, she has spent many years teaching women and minorities how to effectively represent themselves in the free market, especially how to go and to represent their interest in advancing their careers, all while rejecting the allure of government interventions in the job market that the whole so-called equality movement is really all about. It's, some Marxist gobbledygook. This is some really good independence and confidence building stuff here tonight. And I can't wait to just mix it up with Barbara, because it'll start in one place and it'll go to so many others. We got to talk a little bit about faith and family and the whole striking that balance. And there's more. I've got quite a few notes that I built up for myself over here, and I'm sure that she's going to roll with the punches. Well, they're not punches. I would never punch Barbara. Don't say that. Anyway, that's what we have. And because I move a little bit quicker through the opening these days, I just want to remind you all that we have a wonderful array of things that you can do to support the show and the companies that support the show. Go to the affiliates page and really just take a look at all this. I'm telling you, especially if you are looking at a lean Christmas budget, you can do what me and Lauren are doing for a lot of our friends and our families, because, we had a big remodeling year. It's just one of those things where there's things you got to sacrifice to make certain accommodations in the home a thing. Make bundles and packages, or actually get some stockings and stuff this stuff in there. I can't give you any wine, but I can give you chocolates. I can give you coffee. We can give you, there's so many awesome things on there. Go check it out. And please, go love down our friends Pat and Gina at BlueMonsterPrep.com. Give silver, too. I give an ounce of silver to all my friends. Anybody I love. If you haven't gotten an ounce of silver from me yet, it means I hate you. Okay. All right, so that's what we have tonight. I hope you enjoy it. Last night with Dilly was very interesting. Really fun stuff for me. I know that I knew it was going to get a tremendous array of response, and that is why you throw these things into the mix from time to time. Had a great time with them, really did. Had a couple people get in touch with me and say, "You really brought the best out in Dilly. He's hard for me to listen to sometimes. He's just too abrasive." And they say, "Well, hey, that's the taste. You get a taste of everything on this show." All right, into the grab bag we go. Here's the first one up. Pro-Palestinian protesters, one carrying a swastika. Oh, no. Swarm Midtown in a bid to derail the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting. Hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters swarmed the streets surrounding Rockefeller Center on Wednesday, clashing with NYPD and chanting "River to the Sea," long seen as an anti-Semitic slogan in an effort to support Gaza by derailing the annual Christmas tree lighting. Such lovely people on all sides of this, aren't they? Seriously, personally, I wish that they would all go to the City Hall in New York City. I wish that they would request tickets because, New York City government is sending anybody who wants to go anywhere all over the world, you can go and get a ticket right now. I think that they should all go to the Middle East and just duke it out. I think they should go there and just fight it out. Because my desire to contextualize what is motivating either side of any of these recyclable causes of the day, my desire to contextualize that stuff is just almost gone. Because to be reminded of how our country and many Western countries have just been inundated with this feral, caveman-like behavior, regardless of what the cause of the day is just infuriating. People are going to start snapping soon. Okay, just like we played a little bit a very famous scene from the movie Network last night. People are just going to start snapping soon. I'm serious. I mean, the West has always been an incubator for debate and discussion about what's going on in the world, both past, present, speculating about the future. I mean, this has always been what we were about, because at one point we had free speech, and that was really valued. And to politely disagree, even if it's a fiercely controversial topic, that was something that we used to value as a linchpin of our culture. But that's not what this is. This is raised by wolves type of behavior. And the more emboldened that they become, the more that they show us how little they actually care about sharing space with anyone else. You'd think that this tree lighting ceremony over here was like a menorah lighting ceremony. All right? Right? Okay? What does this have to do with Christianity and Christmas trees and all that stuff? It's just wherever someone is trying to have a good time, these Marxist goons, no matter which flag they're waving at the moment, they just want to bust it up because they're miserable and they want everyone else to be miserable too. So, and I didn't even know that Christmas tree lighting was going on. It's been years since I even watched that on television, and I haven't watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on television in years as well. I've been watching old Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And what do you know? You indulge in the old stuff, and you don't have to watch one parade or one Christmas tree lighting or one thing or another interrupted by a bunch of idiots gluing their hands to shit. Bunch of idiots. That's out of my system. I want to get nice and level for when Barbara comes on. Just getting it out of my system. All right? Now, in case you missed it, last night I told you, just reminded you all that Brendan Dilley was on the show. Well, Nostradilly and Frankadamus combined forces, and we created a little bit of interesting synchronicity. Maybe you missed it. If you did, I'm going to give you the liner notes right now. So at one point in the broadcast last night, I asked Brendan Dilley, on behalf of many of you who are asking the same thing, Dilley, who do you think Donald Trump's VP pick is going to be in 2024? And he floated Ben Carson. He said Ben Carson as a VP. And in the mix of that exchange, I said I would love to see a 21st century Calvin Coolidge take office in like 2028. And Carson does pretty much fit that demeanor. He's soft-spoken. He's highly intelligent. And, we don't always need a carnival barking community organizer as a president, Don't always need that. If there's ever a care whether or not the presidency is something we should ever hope to see something change in again, then we really just, the best thing for us would be a sturdy figure who very meekly vetoes 99% of everything that crosses his or her desk. All right? Well, I bring up Calvin Coolidge. He brings up Ben Carson. And an hour after the show ends, so around 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Dilley sends me this tweet, which had just been published. Here it is. Breaking news. A source who is familiar with President Trump's thinking, it just grain of salt, tells me that Ben Carson is the leading frontrunner to be his vice presidential choice in 2024 at this time. What was it tweeted out by? The account? The Calvin Coolidge Project. Okay. Now, what does it mean in the long run? Like I said, grain of salt, feather in the cap, interesting synchronicity. Now, if it actually happens, that would just be spooky. A little spooky there. All right. That's all I have for you on this end. Oh, and Henry Kissinger is dead. So, on the other side of the intro, we have Barbara Yates. I can't wait to introduce you to her. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Remember, at the halfway point at around 8 o'clock, we're going to be bouncing off to Foxhole. All those links are in the description below, and there's plenty of people who can help you with those if you don't see them. And if you don't find it in time, very easy alternative, quitefrankly.tv, and just press play. You can cast it to your television. It's really, really been wonderful. And as you all know, the show is so heavily archived all over the place, really not skipping a beat. And it's just about independence and insurance going into 2024. We just don't know about anything. Anything. Having a good time. We'll be right back with Barbara Yates. Don't go anywhere.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Okay, welcome. It's great to have you here. It is really great to have you here. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you, if you want to contribute your thoughts, your opinions, some shout-outs, a knock-knock joke, then you can send them to quitefranklysuperchat.com, whether we're live or whether we're off air and you just want to leave a little text message for the next day. Quitefranklysuperchat.com is a universal super chat module, a portal that we'd set up, and I hope that you all go and indulge and be a part of the show. I'll be reading that on the other side of the break. And also, Rumble Rants and Gold Pills, they all make the cut as well. I'm going to be reading those. Send them aplenty. All right. Our guest tonight, I have a treat for you all. Our guest, I'm sorry. That was not very smooth. I turned that off. Supposed to fade it, Frank. Our guest is Barbara Yates. I had the pleasure of meeting her in Vermont, like I told you, and she is a public speaker, an author, a coach, and the company is called Womaneuvers, womaneuvers.com. So it's like maneuvers, but Womaneuvers. Okay, and here is what she created. Womaneuvers addresses the common career-advancing challenges encountered by women and minorities in government and private sectors and gives them the practical and tactical tools to tackle those challenges in advancing their careers into leadership positions and influence. Barbara Ann specializes in helping them unlock and unleash their inner leader and achieve empowerment, confidence, career transformation, and advancement. Throughout her career, as she sometimes was the only woman leader at the table, Barbara Ann delivers the tools that she personally used to successfully womaneuver through the male-dominated engineering world. Get this, without an engineering degree. Oh, what do you mean, Frank? I don't know. I guess we just got to talk to the woman of the hour herself. What is going on, Barbara?
Hey, Frank. Nice to see you. It's been a while.
It has been a while. And you know what? The last time I saw you, you were... How long did you spend in the dunk tank, the ice tank?
23, I think. 23 or 24 minutes.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, I came home from that retreat, and I did a victory lap because I spent 4.5 minutes up to my shoulders in that water, and Barbara nearly fell asleep twice.
I did. I did.
She nearly fell asleep twice. She had to be woken up. She's really you got a lot of willpower, Barbara. That's why I knew that I knew there was something else going on with you, and then I figured out what it was. It was this.
Oh, can you share it with me?
I know. Well,
and anybody's interested in Jay's retreats, please. It's so well worth it. It's life-changing. It really is good.
I can attest to that. And you've been to 2 already, right, Barbara?
2. Yeah, I'm a lifer.
Yeah.
Until I can't do it anymore, I'll do it.
Well, it seems like he likes New England, so that'll be good for both of us as far as being able to drive there. Well, we have the brains and the brawn behind the operation here with us tonight. It is Barbara Yates. You've amassed, Barbara, a many success stories over the years. You've told me a few, but I want to start with your own. You went from special needs education to leadership positions in engineering without a degree. Just take us through the timeline.
Ultimately being my own company, consulting to the government on InfoSec. Yeah.
Please, just take us through it all, and don't skip anything, because I want to hear about it again.
Okay, well, this is a nod to Rachel Wilson. You had her on your show a while ago. And I had always had this feeling that women today have more opportunities and they're not availing themselves of it. And she was doing the suffragette conversation with you, and she mentioned that careers hadn't changed in decades, and that they were all service-based. And I'm one of them. When I was coming up, because I'm gray hair, I'm old as dust, I could be a nurse, a secretary, a wife, a librarian, God knows, but it was a teacher. So there were limited opportunities. So when I chose my career, my undergraduate major, I chose it based on what interests me, which was biology and biobehaviorism, and why animals adapt, and how the external environment and internal environment affect the organism. I had no idea what I'd do as a career, so I went into teaching, and I got my master's in special ed. So my friends, whom are still my friends today, chipped in and put their money together. They were in the .com. They were computer science masters. And they said, gee whiz, Barbara, your skill set could transfer into this industry. And I knew nothing about .com or any of that. But I trusted them. And to give you an idea of the time, my rent was $200 a month.
Oh, God bless us all. If we can only
when I say I'm as old as dust, I'm telling you. And they chipped in their money, which was $200 for me to attend this course in encouraging women to get into the industry. And I aced it. And I went, ooh, maybe they have something here. So I went in the field. And they said, you should give it a try. So I called, not face-to-face, a headhunter. And, what did I know? And I gave him my teaching resume, and I didn't hear from him for a while. And I called him, and he says, well, Barbara, I sent out your resume to 100 companies, and I received 100 refusals.
I can imagine. Well, I know.
Sad face. So I went, Now, what I forgot to tell you is then, you can't do it now, but then I had enough credits to teach in the high school level, physics, chemistry, biology, and social studies. So I had a strong science background. And this was the time where teachers were being rifted. Rifted meaning there were more teachers than there were opportunities. So I thought, and I was on a grant, which meant when I hit the maximum of the grant, I would never get a raise. So there was some impetus to explore this opportunity. So as a single mom, I opened up the newspaper, a hand to God, because I believe God directs our lives. There's a newspaper, open house at Sheridan Tara by this engineering company. So I grabbed my son, who was about 10, can't afford a babysitter, huh? So I drive to Framingham, Sheridan Tara in Framingham. I sit my son with the concierge, pay him to watch my son, tell my son how to behave and where to find me and blah, blah. And I go to the desk in front of the auditorium, and it's staffed by people whose job it is to keep people like me out. I'm a teacher, I'm a woman, I don't have an engineering degree. Trifecta of, not interested.
Undesirable.
Desirable. But I always address the elephant in the room. I don't know why, I just do. So I said to them, look, I understand you're advertising and interested in ComSec engineers, electrical engineers, data structure engineers, none of which I knew what they did at the time. But I said, but I have this strong science background, and I'd be curious to see if there's an opportunity for, a marriage of skill set and opportunity. Well, as God provides, there's two people standing at the door listening to this, and they both want to speak to me. So I go with one, and it was software. So if you put a colon instead of a semicolon, the world blows up. And I thought, oh my God, that level of detail, I'd rather set my hair on fire. No. So I go to system engineering. Keep in mind, I know nothing about system engineering. I didn't have time to do research. I got the paper and acted on it, the newspaper. Well, we're going to Sheridan Tara, God provides. So in the course of the discussion, the manager says to me, and with a little bit of an edge, teeny, and he says, well, Barbara, what makes you think you can do this job? And I looked at him. I didn't feel anything threatened or embarrassed. I said, well, sir, with all due respect, as a teacher, you have to have objectives, goals, resources, and then you have to develop metrics to determine how well you arrived at your, goals and objectives. And I said, the only difference, sir, with all due respect, is the vocabulary in which we use to describe the process. Right hand to God. His first words were, you're hired. And there's a postscript to this, but I'll stop right here. If I had let the nameless, faceless, amorphous headhunter define me, I wouldn't be talking to Frank today.
No, and you've done a lot more than this, but it is true. Here we are, and I want to read this to you. It's a quote from you. It says this: "If you don't know your value, others will define it for you. If you don't know it, you can't own it. If you don't own it, you can't communicate it. If you can't communicate it, you can't promote it."
Amen.
Now
Simple
this,
as that.
Barbara, this is a 180-degree divergent from the approach that so-called equality movements push today. Instead, we hear about wage gaps. We hear about, and then coupled with that is the demand for the demand for so many economic interventions that actually make it harder for business owners to run a company on the very same merits that you are telling people, especially women, that you just need to learn how to leverage your merits better in the open market.
Exactly. And when Rachel was on your show, she got me to thinking, because over the course of the years, I've been sharing this unquiet feeling of why aren't women more into it? We had nothing. In my generation, you jumped off the deep end of the pool and hoped you came up. And we recognized our peers at lunch by the Joan Crawford shoulder pad power suits. And we shared information with each other. There were no programs for us. There was no, talk to me, do this, we'll take you away. No. But also it was the times. In my generation, when you were 18, you were out of the house.
Yeah.
And you were expected to chart your own course. So there was none of this, I'll decorate the couch until I find myself. It just wasn't there. So I started to think about it with Rachel, you know, what she had mentioned. And I think now, perhaps, there's a couple of things. There's not just one thing. It's a compendium of things. One, my generation had the highest SAT scores the nation ever saw. Why? Because Sputnik went up, and the focus was on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Since then, and I can be wrong, but I know at least twice, the SATs were reevaluated. And Mensa, the first time they were reevaluated, I think was in the 90s, Mensa stopped taking them as a waiver to enter their organization. So if you had a high SAT score, you didn't have to take the test to be in Mensa. So now I'm wondering how much has been dumbed down. And as a special needs teacher, I never lowered my curriculum. I raised it. And people rise to your expectations. I taught the Scientific American off-prints. Normally that goes to the advanced placement students. I worked with that with my guys. And I didn't tell them that. They found out about it. And when they walked into my classroom, the buttons were popping off their chest because they were given something that they couldn't dream they would ever get. So people rise to your expectations. So now education is different. I'll leave it at that. People today, too many choices. So they're frozen by overchoice. And then, this is my phrase, I don't see the majority of women that I work with understanding their part in the dance. It's almost like they're waiting for it to be presented to them and someone to guide them. Pretty similar to my group of friends. I won't argue that. We see something in you, Barbara, we're gonna guide you to pursue it. And I took the bit by the, and ran off with it.
Well, Barbara, let me ask you this. Speak a little bit more to nature versus nurture, because with all that is thrown at women these days and girls, I mean, we see major disparities that favor girls in college and higher education now, and still with everything that is thrown their way, we are constantly browbeaten about how there's not enough girls in STEM, there's not enough girls in big industry. Now, for those women like you who are being drawn naturally toward technical, I mean, you just are just born with that ability, it's good for them to be armed with these tools, but I still believe that another big fallacy that is pushed by modern day feminist equality movements is that they're trying to push things that just naturally don't jive with most women. And,
Yes. There's so many factors to this, Frank. First of all, as a biology major, certain things stuck with me. So I'm going to throw this out to people. When cells divide, they form 3 layers. The first layer becomes your skin. This one layer becomes your skeletal system. The third layer becomes your internal organs. And the cell structure of your organs and skeletal system and skin are different. To this day, scientists have not found the trigger that turns that to make that happen. So the fact that we're sitting here, people, the odds that you are sitting here are 400 trillion to 1. You're not a mistake. You're a miracle. You have power, you have potential, and you have a purpose. Let's go back to, I'm trying to cram so much into this.
Don't cram.
Kelsey.
Don't cram. Relax. We got a whole show.
I'm so excited.
Oh, good. Okay, as long as you're excited.
I am. Like Monica Kelsey, a thing that happened in her life became her brand. It was higher than herself. She studied, she grew into a field, but the passion that drives her is from a higher source. So it's always about being of service. So one, you're a miracle. You're not a mistake. You have a purpose. How do you find your purpose? You tie into that. Difference between men and women. Absolutely. Not a popular phrase. Men have a part of their brain for communication. Women have that part and a little more. The little more section of the brain works with intuition and insight. Now, when there was an experiment where a scientist read a nursery rhyme to men, and in the meantime, there was an equal volume of back talk. So it was, you had to really listen to the person saying the nursery rhyme to discern the nursery rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
And men could do it, not a problem. Women couldn't. And the reason, postulate, a woman has to keep track of her children. She has to have this antenna to discern her child's cry from the other child's cry in the playground. So we're wired differently. Men are wired differently. And that's a fact for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you work together. When you understand how each other's wired, you can communicate. And I think most of the male audience might identify with this. Two men get together. Hey, I want a sandwich. What do you want? A bologna. Okay. Women get together. Well, I'm gluten-free. I need to have grain sprouted. I don't like so it's war and peace. Yeah. By the time you get to the sandwich that they had, if you're a man, you need no dose or coffee, because it's a drone. Women are detailed oriented to that degree. So there is a difference, but women can learn to communicate to men.
And that's not taking place.
They're not given the tools to know how. They have the desire, they don't know how. I'm trying to think of it. I always tell people that if you are in a discussion, where it can escalate, and you start to use the words "I" with a tone, or "you" with aggression, that's a problem waiting to happen. My late husband and I, we worked 12-hour days, 4-hour commute. Oh my God. So when you come home, you only have 3 hours. So we limit, that's a boundary we set for us, that only important things would be in that 3 hours. But when we would have a discussion that could go one way or the other, my husband would say to me, how do we make this a win-win? That tells me, as a woman, I'm a partner. I'm not being dismissed, I'm being included. So it's how you speak that creates the atmosphere, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it makes me think of something else here too. It makes so much more sense for example, when we're talking about specifically women in male-dominated fields, it makes so much more sense to instruct women who may want to advance in these fields, in these sectors, to realize that there is a difference, very big difference, between the sexes on a natural level, instead of, what the common thread right now is that there's absolutely no difference between anything. And it goes both ways. Men can be women if they want, women could be men. It goes both ways. And what about men that makes them more adept for certain work, and how a woman should adapt to that instead of demand that the standards shift? Because let's face it, we are seeing dropping standards everywhere, from tech to firehouses across the country to the military. And not only does it destroy the quality of the product, it also breeds resentment from those who have been hamstrung by political promotion from inferior workers. And it doesn't do women any good either if they are being allowed to languish in these situations and just having excuses made for why things are going so wrong, when from the beginning, all of the real hurdles and qualifications could be run through that filter of, what's the main way that we all communicate, and what's the nature of the job, and how to bridge that gap between, it's biological in many ways. And I guess that's what you've done over the years.
Differences are differences, but what's common is we're human beings.
Yeah.
That's the common denominator. And in there's an expression, Namaste, loosely translated. The light in me honors the light in you. The light in me is not bigger than yours, smarter than yours, brighter than yours. No, it acknowledges you. That to me is the key. If you, again, I believe in a higher power. I believe in service. I believe that all my skills are God-given, on loan by God. I believe that my job is to be of service and to give as much as I can from an honest place, period. But it's not about me. It's about service. Like Monica Kelsey, it's not about her. It's about service. So when I'll give you an anecdote with a male. I have a male friend. He was between jobs, and he was very excited about this interview that he had, and he was anxious to tell me about it. And he came to me to help him with negotiation of salary because he had been between jobs. So he told me, "Oh, all excited," because I get excited too. Oh, yeah. And he says, "Oh, Barbara," he asked me what was wrong with X. And I went up to the blackboard and I wrote down all this stuff. And, and we had this in common and that in common. And I said to him, "Do you realize what you did?" And he said, "No." I said, do you like hearing your problems? That's like telling your wife, "Do you look fat in these jeans?"
Yeah.
I meant to tell you about that muffin top. Nobody really wants to hear their problems. And I said, and you could risk coming in as the white knight, knowing it all, and that could be perceived as, not necessarily a good quality. I said, how I would have worded it was acknowledge the person you're speaking to. With all due respect, sir, would you like me to point out some options for your consideration? You see the difference?
This is almost pretty much exactly what even Danny Katz was talking about the other night.
Exactly. You acknowledge the person in the room and give him, he has the power to hire or fire you. Give him the power to accept that you're going to do some options and let him choose what he thinks would be a priority. Now you're being perceived as a team player. And that's a man.
Yeah. So give us a success story, one of your favorite success stories for with a woman. Or you. It doesn't, because obviously this is all built off of what you've done for yourself and how you translate it for other people.
This one I'm going to speak about is the testimony is on the website. I would get the calls on Friday night, women in tears, and not knowing what to do. So this woman had been working for an agency and asked for and well qualified, I might add, and requested the promotion, the next level up, and was denied. So she left the company, as women do, and she went into the new company and had a woman who micromanaged her. And to the point where the woman manager wrote 2 threatening emails. So the woman's talking to me, and I said, "Well, you're in luck. I didn't have breakfast and I didn't have lunch, so I'll love to draft this letter for you." And I did, and I told her I did it for human resources. I did not do it for the woman manager. I did not do it for her manager. I did it for human resources, the way it was written, citing regs, citing the excerpt from the email, blah, blah, blah.
Citing the excerpt from the email that the micromanager...
Correct.
And there's a little bit of like a threatening tone to it. Okay.
Correct. So now I said, I forbid you I forbid you to change anything in the last sentence. You can't change it. That has to go. And it was something to the effect, excuse me, based on the aforementioned discussion, one could assert this is an affront to my integrity, not I feel. One could assert this is an affront to my integrity. Therefore, any further discussion, I respectfully request be held with you, your boss, and human resources.
That's again right there to get away from saying I feel one could assert that these are tools. These are big time tools. You're becoming your own lawyer, your own your own collective bargaining agency.
Yes. So now, true story, she sat there for about an hour, give or take, and threw up in the bucket, whatever, and sent it. Now Monday comes, nothing. Chirp, chirp, tweet, tweet. There's a hush. And I said to her, you will be called into Human Resources, or you might be. Have a copy of those letters, highlight the threat, and when they speak to you, slide that across the table and say to them, how would you interpret that? Like, go ahead and say it's not a threat, please. So the next day, or 2 days later, 3 days later, they magically, the new company, magically found a bonus plan for last quarter that she magically won to the tune of $5,000.
There you go. That made at least some things feel a little bit better. What about the micromanager?
So now the old company gets wind, and they know she's a good. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this woman saved the new company $10,000 in her first week there.
Why
which I wrote in the letter.
Just what catching something in the books or something that shouldn't have been there?
No, just her workload or whatever it was. She found whatever. I don't know, but she found it. So I cited that in the letter that went to Human Resources. So now the new company gets wind. They want her back. They're offering her that position, and she says, "Oh, it's I don't know what I'll get." And I said, "Well, look at the range. She could do that." And she says, "I'm making the high end of that range now." And I said to her, "They're calling you. I forbid you to take less than 10%, but you can ask up to 20. Your call." She asked for 15 and they gave it to her without batting an eye.
Oh, she probably could have gotten 25 then.
Bang. But she had to learn that.
Right.
You follow?
Yes.
I couldn't hand it to her. So you have to have a part in the dance is what I'm trying to explain. So I gave her the option to take control. You choose. I bet you the next time she won't do that.
No. No. It really it's something. Okay, well, let me ask you this, because if somebody will say, well, these are really great examples, but as far as society at large goes, what do you think about the idea of being barred out of a position, especially traditionally, let's say anytime in the last 30 years or so, being barred from entry into one place or another just because you're a woman? And let's just say that you are very, very well qualified. You could bring nothing but value and productivity to the position there. So what if you are overqualified? No, just adequately qualified, and you think that there is some chicanery going on there with just sexual discrimination or anything like that? Is this something that is as bad as it always was? Is there a way to get around that? Of course, would you ever want to work at a company that shows you that side of itself so upfront? What do you do when you encounter?
That's such a broad question with so many avenues to pursue. But my counter to that, Amelia Earhart, Madame Curie, all these aviatrix that in the women's Air Force during the war that flew bombers, B bombers across the United States, for the men to take to war. People that own their value find their place, or the place finds them. Truly. I can't answer the broad question. I really can't. But if somebody came to me like this woman with a specific problem, and I looked at the organization chart, if I looked at all the pieces on the chessboard, I might have an opinion. but I can't give you a broad answer to a broad question.
So then, let's say that you were examining one company, and you have a sneaking suspicion that there is something a little bit more shallow going on. That it's a woman, and we just don't take their kind here, or something like that. Are you the type that would ever suggest somebody takes legal action against the company, or would you suggest that you get on with your life and immediately find better opportunities, or do you
Again, it's a broad question. It depends on the individual circumstances. Are you a single mom with 8 kids? Your circumstances are going to, determine what you can and cannot accept, what you will and will not accept. So again, circumstances can, you can be stuck in them for a bit as you're growing out of it. But to answer a broad question with a broad answer, I can't do it.
Okay.
It has to be specific.
Well, fair enough. Here's another one for you then, and this is just coming up for me. Sexuality in the workplace. Now, it's one of those unspoken tales as old as time, and it's a main part of the reason why many men like keeping male spaces clear of women, especially in the military and combat roles, because even just the subliminal feeling of sexual competition or anything like that and we're talking about nature again, can completely alter the entire dynamic of a department, a company, a military unit, whatever it is. When it comes to that, how have you encountered that over time, as far as people, if there is that kind of pushback, or if there is any kind of
I go back to, it's individual. Oh boy, somebody asked me if I was sexually harassed, and I said I don't know. Until they explained it to me, and I went, oh, son of a gun. But I handled it. I went into the guy's office one-on-one. And I said, with all due respect, this is what happened. This is how I took it. I need clarity. Did you mean it? Because if you meant it, now we have to discuss the next step, which could be go into human resources or not. Or if you didn't, and 9 times out of 10, it's not. He apologized. He didn't realize he came across that way, and he became my mentor. So here's the, I want to give this to you. Hold this discussion. Okay. I want to give you your audience, something to think about. Personal power, and I'll go back to Monica Kelsey. Personal power is when you have a higher belief and you want to be of service and values, and you live by them. It oozes from you. You never have to say a word. How many times have you gone into a room where you felt somebody, oh my God, this person's interesting, and this one is like, you felt it.
Yeah.
Because they're oozing it. So I'll give you this example. Mother Teresa, controversy aside, was visiting the orphanages in Romania, and there was a civil war. And the warring factions, decided to have a ceasefire so that she could come and see the orphanages. She didn't issue a press release. She didn't ask them to do that. Her brand made that happen. Take a dictator, name 20 of them. They rule by fear and intimidation and aggression. Some of them, you barely remember their name. So it's what you are, what you own, what your values are, become your brand. And I'll come back to what we were getting at. My father was deaf from the war. I was 4 or 5. And he would not sign, he would lip read. And very few people lip read at the time. And his friends made fun of him. And I was taken aback. And I didn't say anything, but I asked my mother what that was about. She introduced me to the, unkindness of the world.
Were his friends veterans as well?
I do not. I was 5.
Okay.
4. Who knows? I don't know. Men in the street. That
just infuriated me right there. You saying that right there infuriated me. Yeah.
So, but again, I'm a child, so I don't want to, say anything there. So I got clarity from my mother. So now this drove my life without me realizing it right off the way. If I managed people, nobody would treat my people with disrespect. Nobody. Nobody came to them unless they came through me. I had their back. I mentored them. I guided them. No one was going to, and it comes from that moment in time. So that became my brand. So here's how an aspect of my brand became me. When I ran a meeting, the only woman in the room, and I would level set expectations. Gentlemen, don't check your BlackBerry for your golf scores, no sidebar conversations. If I ask Frank a question, I'd like to hear the answer, blah, blah, blah. Well, the first time that happened, how well did that go? I didn't say to the room, be quiet, be quiet. If you were talking, Frank, I put my hand up and you stopped talking. And then whack-a-mole. People would go, well, oh, it's quiet. Why is it quiet? And I would ignore that, and I'd say, Frank, please continue. And I did that as often as it took for them to get that they wanted the same respect back when they talk. Then it became my brand. So when I had meetings, I didn't have to level set expectations. People knew. So now how does this become my brand? I'm consulting, I'm working for a program manager. The program manager knew of me in a previous job, two jobs back, different company. I didn't know that. And that person, the manager, says to me, I'd like an answer to this question. And I looked at the person. I didn't have an attitude. I just sat in silence. And she turned to the room and said, I asked Barbara Ann a question. I'd like to hear the answer. I didn't say a word.
I see where you're taking this. I see how a seed planted so early on in your life, seeing your father disrespected by people who knew that they can take advantage of him, and having that kind of defending the underdog, especially even if whether it's in a corporate or a social environment. I can see how that became a really big driving part of your personality, and that your soul was really behind it. But as you went to develop this storyline and how you would manage boardrooms and meetings with a bunch of people, some distracted parties and this and that, all I keep telling myself is we are awful communicators. And because everything you're talking about now is just all really, really very strategic, good communication etiquette, and it's so psychologically deeply impactful. Whereas all we do these days is seemingly talking over each other and nobody's listening. It's and we're more distracted than we ever have before. If you're using a BlackBerry example now, I mean, it's everybody's on the proverbial BlackBerry constantly.
Right. But it's a manager's job to control the meeting. Don't they teach that at program management school? My goodness.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the larger picture that you were talking about. If a woman has skills like Hidden Figures, Karen Johnson, if you're good at what you do and you own it, the universe bends to your beliefs. Opportunities come. For me, now, is it forever? I'm not talking generalizations, but a lot of the women I mentioned, the woman who Crick, they supposedly invented the DNA. It was a woman, and they took her work. But it happens. But then if you look at the larger picture, you contributed to something bigger than yourself. So that's why it's important to know what your value is, to know that you need to be of service, to know that you have skill sets and you've used them to the best of your ability, and through the grace of God, you don't abuse anyone with it, you don't browbeat anyone with it, you try to connect with people, and just by asking for clarity, did you mean this? when you said this, I've done it 3 or 4 times, always with the same response. My God, Barbara, I didn't realize that could be taken that way. And these people became my friends.
Instead of enemies, and instead of there being a crying match and all that. And another thing that you're saying right there, Barbara, is that especially when you talk about people who have skills, and if you put them to use and you actually pursue them, success will ultimately follow in some way, shape, or form. Now, there are very talented guitarists out there who've never sold an album in their lives. We know that happens, but it speaks to society where you are doing your job, and I know that there's other people out there trying to teach these really, these very, very easily applied and valuable skills to people, but where society is taking the whole idea of women advancement and equality is really in I would say trying to promote the lowest common denominator into places that the highly skilled people should be allowed, given the tools to advance themselves on, and in turn of taking those who maybe don't have that fire and don't have the actual top-notch skill to do it. In promoting those people, everybody sees the lack of qualifications. They see the lack of quality of outcome. And because this is the outcomes we're seeing constantly, again, there's that resentment that there is a society that is just politically promoting people to rub it in our faces, to try to erase the difference between, it's very frustrating to see.
But again, the world isn't perfect. It wasn't perfect when Adam and Eve came about, and it's never going to be perfect. But you have a part in the dance, and that's the part I think people miss.
Mm-hmm.
You create your reality. Peter Drucker said it in terms of financial industry, but he said, if you want to know your future, create it. Hello, create it.
Yep.
And if I was talking to years back, 40 women in a room, and I said to you, how many believe in pay inequity? 40 hands go up. How many, I realized that there was bipartisan legislation to address pay inequity. Some hands went up. And I said, how many of you realize you have a part in the dance? Huh? I said, well, if you take a lateral, if you don't research the company, if you don't understand the salary range, and you don't do the research, and you accept a lateral, that's on you.
You see, right? See what you're talking. That is such a breath of fresh air. It's like an aha moment every time you make these points here, Barbara. Because in this day and age, it is so much more likely that somebody would say, "Oh, well, I didn't get this job because of the patriarchy."
Can I just say poo-poo?
Yeah.
Go back to my transition into the industry. I was offered that job, I think in September, with that manager. You're hired. And I said to him, from my place of truth and value, sir, with all due respect, my population in education is at risk. I fear that if I give them a 2-week notice, they will take that as another abandonment. May I have more time to find my replacement and transition that replacement into my job? And I want you to tell me how many months he held that job for me.
3 months.
Yes. September, October, November, December.
Wow. 12. You got 12 weeks. That's incredible.
And I not only that, they offered me a 49% salary increase. I'm a single mother that owned half a house in tuition loans. This is why I say, if you don't have values and you don't live by them, and if you don't know your value, you lose. Now, that's a male-dominated environment. I'm a teacher, I'm not an engineer, and I'm a woman. And they held that spot for me. Why? I don't know why. I could guess. Maybe they saw something. So what I'm saying is, higher power, own your value, be of service. Everything comes together, and the world and the universe bends to your beliefs.
We're going to stop right there, and we're going to I'm going to put you on mute. We're going to do an intermission. I want to hold you to the other side because I want to talk about higher power. I want to talk about God. I want to talk about spiritual fulfillment, work, family, balance, all that, and that'll be on the other side. This is going to be really, really, really awesome, ladies and gentlemen. If you're having a good time, please join Barbara and I on the Foxhole link that we provided in the description of the episode on YouTube and Rumble and elsewhere. I also tweeted it out and syndicated that tweet. There's a direct Foxhole link there. If that's too complicated, you can just go to quitefrankly.tv and press play. It's all powered by Pill.net and Foxhole anyway, and it's been that way for a long time. So just join us over there, and we will see you soon. Remember that this show will be uploaded and archived in its entirety on Rumble and Rockfin and BitChute and all podcasts before the night is over. So, but there's nothing like live. Ain't nothing like live. That's why I don't pre-record. It's a live experience. Come on over, because I also want to read some of your questions. If you have any, send in questions for Barbara that you want to hear. You may want to hear her riff on a little bit to, quite frankly, superchat.com. They can come in through the form of the gold pills and all of that stuff. So, yeah, we will be back in a flash.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to intermission.
We'll be right back.